Hey, Raymond Duke here, sales funnel copywriter. And in this video, I'm going to share 7 social media copywriting tips you can use today. So I write copy, which is words that I use to sell products or services. I essentially focus on sales funnels, which is what is a technical term that leads people from an advertisement to something like a landing page, to an opt-in, or to a sales page, and eventually a whole process that generates money. So as I've been doing this over the years, I picked up some tips, and some of the tips I'm going to share with you right now are about social media. Since you're in the social media agency program, I want to share these tips with you. And they're pretty simple to use. You can get started to use them as early as today. If you have a client, you can immediately use these tips. If you're outsourcing your copywriting, you can take notes and pass along these tips to the person you're hiring. Let's just jump right into this one because there's a lot to cover. So this video might be a little bit longer than the last one, but the tips are very simple. You can use them, like I said, as early as today. Fix this. All right, so the first tip is about the type of words that you use when writing. Now, what you want to do is think about verbs, okay? This is something that's known as active language. There's passive language, and then there's active language. Passive language might be something like, I have been thinking about something, or like, not really saying it, but more like you're kind of saying it, but not really saying it. It's a passive way of explaining. But to be active, to write in such a way that gets results, you want to use active language. So an example of some types of words that are active verbs, language that you can use, language that speaks in a way that generates action, are some words like get, take, click, download. Words like these focus on the action, right? They focus on the reader doing something as a result. They focus on them actually doing something instead of just reading. Stuff like this is what separates copywriting from regular writing, right? If it was just a regular kind of writing, you can just go on the internet, write some words, and hope for the best. But that's not really going to work when it comes to getting results. If you want to write copy that gets results, that actually does something, that makes people go out and do something, makes them click your links, watch your videos, then you're going to want to use verbs. So here's an example that I wrote down. Let's say, for example, there's a small business that sells furniture. Okay, it's a furniture business. A bad example, a bad way to write out a tweet or an update on Facebook would be something like, our furniture store is amazing. Come visit us now. I mean, that is not really, first of all, it's not about the reader. It's just them bragging about how amazing they are, which really, it might work for some people, but most are going to be like, whatever, right? Now, a better way to write something like that is, in the previous video, I talked about focusing on the reader. You can write something like, get, that's a verb, get competitive prices on comfy sofas. So you're talking about something that they can get, you're using a verb, competitive prices, something they care about, okay, they want to save money, and comfy sofas. You're talking about a sofa that you can relax in, it feels good. Test them out today. Come visit us at, and then you put the address, okay? So test them out, visit us, get, those are verbs. Those are words that speak the language of taking action. And that's it. So the more you use these types of verbs in the copy that you write, the more engagement you're going to see with your updates, because like I said, you're speaking the language of action versus the language of not taking action, which is not good. So don't do that. Next tip is to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't try to overthink it. If you find yourself overthinking it, you're thinking too much, and you shouldn't do that. Just keep it simple. What I mean by this is that no matter what kind of writing that you're writing, long copy, short copy, copy for Instagram, Facebook, whatever, focus on keeping it simple. And one of the ways that you can do this is instead of using longer words, use words that have syllables of 1 or 2. So use 1 or 2 syllable words. So instead of saying something like, maybe residential property, you can say something like, homes or, land. I mean, that's essentially the same thing, right? They essentially mean the same things. But why would you, use these long words to explain that? I mean, there's no reason there that you should use words that are longer than they need to be, unless the caveat to that is you might have a particular type of customer that responds better to more technical words. But in most cases, especially in B2C, which is business to consumer, you're not going to really concern yourself with trying to use words that are longer than they need to be. Don't try to complicate things. Keep it simple. That's the second tip. Keep it simple. Use words that are 1 or 2 syllables. Home, land, housing, 2 syllables, okay? So that's the next tip. Keep it simple. Tip number 3 is a good way to get the attention of people who are so distracted. There's so much noise on social media, right? There's so many things to look at, so many distractions from videos and pictures and updates and arguments, and it's just a noisy place to be. So the next tip is going to be a way for you to get the attention of people who are scrolling through their feeds or going throughout their day, and this one thing is going to be something that you can use to pull them in and to make them watch your videos and read your stuff instead of just scrolling on past it. So the tip number 3 is to use questions to call out your market. Okay? So let's break this down. Use questions to call out. A call out is a way to identify somebody from an audience that lets them know that you're speaking directly to them. So if you can ask a question that calls out somebody from a crowd, makes their ears perk up, makes them notice you, then that's a good thing to do, right? Use questions to call out your market. So if you're writing copy for, let's say for example, in that hair salon example that I gave you in the video before this, I had said that a lot of women fear going to a hair salon because they're not sure if they trust the person that's going to cut their hair. That's, because if things go wrong, then she has to deal with that. So that's a big fear. She's nervous about that. So keeping that in mind, a good question to ask to call out that person who has those fears. You know that they're real fears because you can go on Yelp and look them up. A question would be an ad or an update. Would you trust this woman with your hair? You see how that gets your attention? Because you can also add a picture of maybe the owner of the hair salon. And that kind of captures you because it's like, would I trust her? I don't know yet. Let me see what the rest of the copy says. All that we're doing there is we're asking a question to call out the market. We're figuring out what that person is thinking about, what they want, what they don't want, what they're fearful of. And we use these things to figure out what type of person that we're going to be talking to. And then we use questions to call out that person from a very noisy environment, which is social media. So that's just a way, that's the next tip, is to call out your market using questions. It's a really good way to go about doing that. The next tip is to be specific. specific. So you want to be clear. Don't be vague. Don't leave as much as possible, as much as you can. Do not leave things open to interpretation. You can use words with some simple changes, using numbers, using names, using details. You can make things very clear, which you should do for your reader. Don't be vague, don't be unclear, because that is just going to kill the conversion rate. That's going to kill the engagement, because frankly, people don't want to think so much. They want to think using the least amount of energy as possible. So it's your job, if you're writing copy for your clients on social media, is to do all the work that you can in your writing so the person reading it immediately gets what you're saying. And you're using, like I said, numbers and names and examples to make things detailed. So I wrote an example for this one too. So if you were to, let's say you're writing a quick ad or an update for a small business, and they could say something like, we are right off the freeway, ask us about our sale. So that's not a good way to write it, because first of all, you're not saying which direction that they should go in, who should you ask about the sale, what kind of sale are they talking about. That's a very vague way. Just by making a couple quick changes, we can make that one line a lot better. So a better way to write that would be, we're right off the 405. Head east for 7 minutes after taking the Culver Boulevard exit. Don't forget to ask Julie about our 15% discount. You see how I made that more detailed? I made it more clear what they should do. Head east after taking this exit for 7 minutes. Ask for this one person. That is something that generates action, because you're giving them the exact steps to take. You're making things easy for the reader, and they don't have to think about what to do. You're making it crystal clear. Okay? The next tip is a simple one. Use something called a CTA in your copy. Doing this will boost the conversions, boost the engagement, boost the likes, the comments, the shares. And a CTA is an abbreviation for something called a call to action. Okay? A call to action is really what separates copywriting from regular writing. You can read a story, you can read some news, but if there's no call to action, it just kind of ends. It's kind of hitting a dead end. There's a brick wall there. There's no steps, there's no instructions on what to do next. But if you had a call to action, if you had a CTA to your social media updates when you're writing copy, you're directing someone to do something. So a call to action could be something like this post if you agree, comment with your thoughts, share this post with your friends, click this link now. Those are calls to action, because you're directing somebody to continue onward to the next step. That's what a call to action is. You're calling them out and saying, hey, take this action. That's tip number 5. All right. We're going to need a new sheet for this one. Tip number 6 is to rely on proven formulas for writing copy. So I'm going to write out some formulas in a second. Use proven formulas. And a formula is basically kind of like a way to write the structure of your updates on social media in such a way that is proven to work, right? You could try to figure things out on your own, but there's a countless amount of money and time and resources that have gone into figuring this out. So if you can use that, start there instead of trying to start from scratch. Okay? The formulas are pretty simple. I'm going to give you 2 right now. The first is called PAS. What this stands for is problem, agitation or agitate. I spelled it wrong, agitate. And then solution. Very simple. And just because there's a formula and you see multiple steps does not mean that you need to write a whole page. You can actually use this formula in a couple sentences or even inside of a tweet. which I've actually done. So let's say you have a small business client and they're a plumbing business, okay? Using this formula, you can say something like, your leaky sink is draining your wallet. We'll fix this. Call us now. And that's the number. So your leaky sink, that's the problem, is draining your wallet, is the agitation, because it's not just leaking, you're losing money. So you're identifying what the problem is, but then you're making it worse. And then the solution is to call. It's also a call to action. You're telling them to call a number to get that result. And that's within a tweet. You can even add a picture to that. You can even add more copy if you wanted to. That's using this formula here, but using that, you can really keep it short and simple and to the point, but also use a proven formula for writing copy. The next formula that you can use is called ADA. And ADA stands for attention. So this is the name of the formula. And by the way, you can find more of these. I mean, there's a lot of them, but these are my favorites. So maybe make a little mental note to research this further, because there's some good ones out there, but like I said, these are my favorites. There's attention, interest, desire, and then action, which is calls to action. So attention, interest, desire, and then action. So an example of this one in action would be something like, let's say you have a small business that's a laundromat. Okay, you want to write an ad, or you want to write an update on social media to get them to come to you to clean their laundry, wash their socks. So you can say something like, got dirty laundry? We'll clean it for you. Enjoy free coffee and Wi-Fi while you wait. Visit us now. Link. Boom. So what you're doing there, you're using a question, like we talked about in another tip, to identify the market. You're calling out the market with a question when you're saying, got dirty laundry, because if they do, then they're going to listen to you, right? Because they're going to be like, yeah, I do. We'll clean it for you. Okay, cool, because that way they don't have to work. So if they're looking for someone to clean their laundry, that's going to get them interested in what you have to say. Enjoy free coffee and Wi-Fi while you wait. Boom. Not only will they clean it, you're going to get something that is free Wi-Fi and coffee. So that's going to make you desire to want to go there versus just going to a coin place or something like that. Visit us now, call us. That's where the calls to action is. And that's it. That's really kind of a few ways of using proven formulas to write out your copy. So let's get on to the next tip. This is actually the last one. I think I can fit it on here. I'll write it up here. Number 7, the final tip for this one is to be relevant. This is where I feel that there's a big advantage of writing copy on social media with this last tip, because you can take advantage of things that are going on in the world, things that are trending, certain events, things that are happening. You can use that in such a way that gets people's attention. You can use that as part of your writing. So back in 2013, the power went out at the Super Bowl. And for about 34 minutes, people were in the dark. Okay, so what do people do if the power goes out? You're at a big game. You're most likely gonna pull out your phone because there's no lights. And you wanna check for updates. You wanna tweet about the fact that you're at the Super Bowl. There's no power. That's what people were doing. So what Oreos did in 2013 was they tweeted, you can still dunk in the dark. And they posted a picture of one of their cookies with a backdrop of like an all black backdrop and white text. Within an hour, that thing got like 10,000 retweets or something. It just went viral. Because what they did, they were relevant to something that was current. And they pushed that thing out. It was just a picture with some text on it. It took them, I'm sure, 5 or 10 minutes to make and approve and launch. They did something that was relevant, and they took advantage of that, and they got a lot of attention. And think about that for a second, because that was free publicity, free ways for them to get the attention of a lot of people. And you don't have to be a big company to do something like that, to be relevant. There might be a local event happening in the city for one of your clients. There might be a fundraiser or something. There's always something going on. There's always news and events that are taking place. And you can use those current events to bring relevancy and to pull the attention from people who care about those events to your client. So a good site that I like to use to look at headlines of news and stuff like that is called Pop URLs. I'll write this out, Pop, P-O-P-U-R-L-S. I think it's .com, but you can just Google that. But if you just go here, that site is, it aggregates a lot of news sites like Reddit, Twitter, BuzzFeed. It takes all those major sites and it puts the headlines from them on one page. So by just going to that site, you can look at what's trending, what's happening, what's going on, and kind of use that to get ideas to be relevant for your copy. So that's it for these 7 tips. The action step for this one is to write down in the comments below which of these tips was your favorite, which of these tips do you see yourself using today, and how do you see yourself actually using one of these tips in practice. If you want to actually use one of these tips and write it out below, that'll help you kind of warm up your brain to get used to implementing these tips versus just listening to them. You can actually start using them right now down below by writing how you would write an update using one of these tips. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.